This week on Chat and Shit, we're cracking open a jar, literally and figuratively, and diving deep into the world of fermentation. From kombucha and kefir to kimchi, sourdough, and that slightly mysterious miso lurking at the back of the fridge, we're breaking down how fermented foods and drinks can actually support your gut and your overall health without needing to live in a cottage-core fantasy. We're joined by Miguel Toribio-Mateas, clinical neuroscientist, gut health researcher, and full-time fermentation fanboy. That's a mouthful. And Chessie and Matt King Carter. Two of my faves. Right. Before we dive into the science, Miguel, Chessie, Matt, fermented foods and drinks. What's the chat? Have you tried them? Are they in your daily routine?
So, do you know, on the way, I was like, oh, Chess, I need to put into ChatGPT just to understand a little bit more about fermentation and stuff. And she was like, come on, Matt, just give me a couple of foods. And I was like, kimchi.
Yes.
Kombucha. Kefir. I know it's great.
Yes.
You're going to tell me why it's great, though.
The 3 Ks.
Yeah.
The 3 Ks. And we do have it a lot in the house. Like I'll always add miso into everything. And I'll always say to Matt, what is that secret ingredient in this meal? And he's like, oh, Marmite. I'm like, absolutely not.
In fairness, Chess does add miso to everything and it's amazing.
Salty goodness.
So good.
It's the best.
I just love, I love it. I honestly could drink kombucha for days. I actually asked one of my best friends who's a doctor a few years ago, I said, can I die from drinking too much kombucha?
Can
she
I
was
drown
like,
in kombucha?
no, as long as you're not, I just love it.
It's so good.
I love it.
It's so good. Miguel, what actually, because I think fermented foods are getting so much hype right now, which is great for us in the old gut health world. But despite sort of popular opinion, they weren't invented in an East London brewery. They've been about for eons, haven't they?
Yeah.
And what actually are they?
Well, they're basically a combination of bacteria and yeast as well. And that's one of the things that people tend to forget about. We tend to talk about bacteria mostly. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you look at kombucha, it's mostly yeast that's happening in there. So it's a community of microbes that happen to find something to eat. And it could be sugars in fruit. It could be natural sugars in sugarcane. It could be lactose in yogurt, in milk that makes yogurt. So basically they gather together, they form a colony, they start creating kind of like a structure around that colony. That's the actual kefir grains, for example. And they start feeding from that substrate. They start feeding from that food, whatever that may be, whether it's fruit juice or sugar or lactose. And they basically transform that original food into something else that will have beneficial properties. And people realize of that like thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. So in any culture around the world, there will have been some fermented food or another, and people will have known intuitively, because they didn't have the science at the time, what the food was good for, whether it was good for their tummies or, they make them feel better or, so that's the gist of it.
And I guess they're used for preservation as well, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So if we took kombucha, for example, in toddlers' terms for me, we have a SCOBY.
Yeah.
We've got a few here in front of us. They look a bit like jellyfish.
Is that what they're called?
SCOBY.
Yeah.
Or is it SCOBY? Would you say SCOBY?
SCOBY.
Oh,
you say
I
SCOBY?
say Scooby, but only
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo,
Yeah.
yeah, fair enough.
SCOBY.
Yeah,
Okay.
SCOBY.
Correction.
It's SCOBY. I won't go into the acronym of what it actually stands for because I'm not actually entirely sure.
Yeah.
But basically, the bacteria in the SCOBY
Yeah.
eat the sugar that you would have add to the kombucha with green tea.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then it makes magic.
Yeah, so SCOBY stands for symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast.
Here we go.
Yeah,
There it is.
I remembered.
Ding, ding.
And basically, two things are happening. So there's the actual feeding of the bacteria and the yeast as well. So they're eating the sugar. When you put in sugar, people get freaked out by sugar and they think, oh my God, it's going to be so sugary. But most of it, like 98% of the sugar is actually digested by the microbes. And in doing that, they get energy, and they use the energy to transform other nutrients that are in the juice. So because you've put some tea in there, then tea has these things called catechins, which are antioxidants, polyphenols that can be transformed. Now, polyphenols get, again, like a buzzword, everybody's talking about polyphenols. But if you think about what they do for humans, we cannot really understand polyphenols. Our cells don't really know how to deal with them. So the bioavailability, basically how available they are to our body, is very low. So we can only get about 5% of the goodness of the polyphenols. But because of the microbes in the kombucha, we can get a lot more. So we can actually multiply times 10 or 15, depending on the studies that you read, the availability of these antioxidants. So basically, you make the antioxidants really human compatible. So then you can use them in things like protecting the brain, protecting the gut, the heart, and everything else. So the catechins are unlocked from this kind of locked antioxidant that humans cannot really understand into a human compatible version of that green tea antioxidant that we can use in all cells in the body.
Is there anything, like, I'm quite new to kombucha, is there anything we should be looking out for when we're buying kombucha in terms of ingredients? What are the good ones to go for? What should we be avoiding?
Yeah, so because it's become really popular, people are making adventurous kind of kombuchas that maybe don't taste so good because they have like too many ingredients or whatever, and they're having to tweak the flavors with synthetic ingredients. So it might look like a really exciting kombucha or watermelon kombucha or whatever, but then when you read what the ingredients are, the watermelon is like a synthetic version of watermelon, or there might be a sweetener in there that you don't want. So is it going to kill you? No. Is it going to be exciting to your palate and something different? Yes. Would I have that every day? No. So I think it's a matter of, keeping things in balance. But yeah, try and read the ingredients and say, if you want the authentic kombucha, you should only have literally tea, sugar. A lot of manufacturers will use sugar cane or something kind of like, quite natural sounding. It's all going to be sugar at the end of the day. It's the same thing, but it sounds quite natural. And some of them will say it's organic because the sugar cane is organic, fine. But it's sugar at the end of the day. So it's water, sugar, and tea. That's the main thing. And if they want to make something a bit more diverse, they might put different types of tea in there. So might have like red tea, green tea, black tea. And that's great because the polyphenols will be slightly different. So it's like a slightly different version. It's almost like a dialect of a language. So yeah, or a language with a different accent. So it's a polyphenol with a Geordie accent, kind of.
There we are. And something like Equinox is great for that because it's like sort of the premise we have with food now as well, is looking at the back and sort of the cleaner the label, the better. And you can ferment at home, can't you? I mean, with the best will in the world, I have tried, and it lasts about 2 weeks. And then my husband's like, why have we got all these jars?
I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah.
How would you start?
Julesy, my mum is very into that.
Your mum has
She did-
absolute goals, by the way.
She is the epitome of health. Like, if she came back as a substance, I think she would come back as a SCOBY or a sourdough starter. She's just
Fair.
amazing.
Anytime I go to Chessie's, I'm not offered beer, I'm offered kombucha.
Yeah, fair enough.
Genuinely, like we all drink kombucha as a celebration.
I love it.
It's amazing. And actually, I love how she experiments with different foods and like she'll try. And this is going back to we are so lucky that we have everything available. We can buy our kombucha off the shelf. We can buy our sourdough from the bakery. But I love that she experiments and tries to make her own. And we'll always just be like,
Yeah, it's good.
It's lovely.
Yeah, lovely.
But you can taste when it's fresh and it's homemade.
Yeah.
And we'll go to hotels and they say, oh, what do you want? And I don't drink. So and obviously now I have another child
on the way.
I will go for a kombucha. And you can taste when they have freshly, when they've had a batch brewing for a long time.
Yeah.
Compared to out the can. So
Yeah.
I love tasting it all. And like you said, you can taste the synthetic. You know when something isn't right and your body can't digest it as well.
Yeah.
And it's like hearing the science behind it. It's like magic. Do you know what I mean? It's like
so
fermented foods
incredible.
and drinks. It's like, wow, that is
Yeah, and what
amazing.
about we both have young children. What about giving kombucha to children?
That's absolutely
okay?
fine. Yeah, some people get a bit
Loves
freaked
it.
out because there may be, depending on the fermentation, there may be a tiny amount of alcohol. But they,
That explains a lot now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
But we're talking about tiny, 0.00 tiny amounts of alcohol that might actually be in a banana that's too ripe as well. So
and orange
you know,
juice, I think, seemingly has really
yeah,
low levels, doesn't
exactly.
it?
So I
Yeah.
think, if you overanalyze things, then you wouldn't have anything. So there would just be maybe a tiny amount of alcohol to take into account.
Okay.
And that, funny enough, that happens with some people talk about water kefir as something similar to kombucha. And it happens that water kefir has actually got more alcohol per
Right.
per milliliter than kombucha. So because it's a different SCOBY, it's a different colony, and it happens to produce more alcohol. So kombucha is actually a pretty healthy drink that I wouldn't have. I haven't got children, but I wouldn't have a problem giving to my children if I had any.
And Chessie's got a bun in the oven. Is it all right for pregnancy as well? Because I was always scaremongered in pregnancy, like, oh, you shouldn't be having it. I mean, I had it anyway.
Yeah. My mum used to drink Guinness with me, and I turned out
exactly.
all right,
I was going to say, God knows what my mum drank
then. It is safe, isn't it? If you're not drinking over, I'll have a can every 2-3 days, or not a can, but a bottle.
I'm pretty sure it's safe. I mean, they also say not to have raw fish. Go to Japan and tell that to a Japanese woman. So, and fermented foods in general that are not non-pasteurized as well. So again, go to Japan and say to somebody not to have miso, for example. So, and that's been fermenting in an oak barrel for 3 years. So it could have all sorts of things in there, but it doesn't. So I think it's just
being sensible.
Being sensible. I think public health messages are simple, so everybody understands them. But just listen to your body. I don't think a bit of kombucha is going to do any harm to you or the baby.
And we focus so much on getting your 5 a day in and all of this public health messaging. But if you were to say to just someone on the street, have your 5 a day, yes, and make sure it's a variety of colours, etc., and then add one live bacteria like a kombucha, like a kimchi, like a kefir. Are you saying 1 a day is enough?
I'd say so, yes, because I think a number of things. So let me break it down. Some people have never had fermented foods. They suddenly read a book or they watch a podcast and they go completely neck deep into fermentation. And then they say, oh my God, I got so bloated and it must be histamine and blah, blah. And they go into a rabbit hole of why it may have happened. And I'm sure you've seen this.
Yeah, I was going to talk about histamine actually, because Melvin O'Doon was on a few podcasts ago and he had a kombucha addiction.
Yeah.
And there was all this sort of chat. I can't remember what happened, but turned out that it was to do with histamine.
Yeah.
And so kombucha has histamine in it, is that right?
Well, all fermented foods are likely to have some histamine in there, or they are likely to make you release some histamine in the gut, because there will be some cells in your gut that will release histamine, which is not, again, it's a bit like cortisol and stress. People think about cortisol and they think, oh my God, it's the enemy. You wouldn't get out of bed without cortisol, so you need it. And histamine is the same. It acts as a chemical messenger, and is one of those that carries messages that are kind of excitatory. So you either have uppers or downers in your neurotransmitters, your messengers that work on the nervous system and the brain. And histamine is an upper. So it basically conveys messages that are more about doing stuff as opposed to chilling you down. Like GABA, for example, is a trendy one as well.
That's like your namaste one, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you need that histamine anyway in your body. It's just that when you overproduce the histamine, it might make you feel itchy or uneasy. In the gut, it might make you feel a bit of sensitivity or urgency to go, because it might actually make your muscles kind of spasm as if you need to have a poo. What we don't talk about so much is that the body knows when to produce histamine, and it knows to produce histamine when you're under stress, particularly under chronic stress, because it's produced alongside other hormones and other molecules that will carry messages between your stress system and the brain to help you manage that stress. So sometimes we blame the fermented food, but we don't take into account that we may be going through a painful divorce. And then you're having the kombucha and you're thinking, oh my God, the kombucha really gave me a lot of histamine. I'm itching to buggery. And I'm thinking, oh, it must be the kombucha. But no, love.
Or you're getting WhatsApps from your ex.
Well, exactly.
It's not that. It's not the butch hunt.
Well, exactly. So a lot of, I think we are multi-layered beings, humans. And if you just look into the biology only and you ignore the context, then you miss out. So I think, going back to your question, a little bit of everything a few times a week is good enough, as opposed to just this overload of, 3 cans of kombucha, kefir daily, have it in the fridge. And also yogurt is really good. I mean, people just think, oh, I must have kefir because, it gives me much more for my pound than the yogurt in terms of bacteria. But yogurt is different to kefir, have both. So, yeah.
Now, when it comes in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think people often nowadays really want like science backed, and they want clinical trials and how is this going to be good for me and why, and give me the evidence. But it's very hard to get evidence on fermented foods because who's paying for a clinical trial for them? So, example, when probiotics in pharma, obviously pharma companies have got enough money to pay millions of pounds for these clinical trials. So it's very difficult for us to get that sort of research into fermented foods and drinks because who's paying for that. Is that right? Because I know you've done a few bits of research.
Well, when we met originally, we met like yonks ago anyway, but I think we may have
back
met...
when no one was talking about gut health.
Yeah, back like 2014, 15.
Oh my God, stop. Yes,
I know.
It was.
But shortly after that, I went into... I had a fellowship at the School of Applied Sciences at London South Bank University that was hosting this lab where the European Regional Development Fund basically paid me to do research on fermented foods for 5 years. It helped some companies actually launch some products. I'm not going to say names, but we also did a lot of things that we do in science, which is we do trials behind the scenes that don't get published because we're trying to prove a concept and we're trying to prove a hypothesis or test a hypothesis as opposed to prove it and see whether things work. So then rather than actually getting millions to fund a clinical trial, you have a better idea as to whether it's going to work or not.
My mum's so
Your mum's
jealous
trying
of
to
me
call
right
you
now.
now, yeah.
No. She honestly adores
should
you.
have
I just
got-
need to tell you.
Oh,
She
thank
really.
you.
She listened to like every single one of your podcasts
Oh my
because you
God.
did one with Dr. Chastity, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she
Oh my God,
honestly,
cute.
she sends it
We
all
should have
to
brought
us.
her along.
She loves. Oh,
She's
she's
fangirling,
so
yeah.
jealous.
Yeah.
She would be so jealous.
Oh, give her a hug from me.
I will.
I can't believe that was 2014 that you started that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I
2014.
started chatting with Tim Spector
We did the research in 2015.
in
so that would have been right.
2014 about creating Zoe. That was
Yeah.
not called Zoe at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh,
It was
what
called
it
Map My Gut.
Map My Gut. Oh
So
my God, I've still got the
basically,
emails.
My
And then it was Predict, I think.
my
wasn't it?
husband was kind of like telling me all the time, "Oh my God, like, are you having an affair with Tim Spector?" He's like,
This is what we actually want to
He's
hear,
a
guys.
dishy man.
he
Yeah.
is. He
I
is.
know.
Housewife
It's like,
slave.
I had like Tim Spector on like speed dial, like, let's meet for another coffee, and that led to me working with him at King's
That
for a
must have
couple
been
of
how we met,
years,
wasn't
and and I met Amrita as well,
Yeah.
VJ, and another few people. Anyways, so that then led me to do various bits and pieces to do with the microbiome and this fellowship. And so I was just saying, not all science is published because even just to do this kind of tiny proof of concept trials, it costs thousands of pounds. Just the human cost, you need to turn up and go to a lab and do some cultures or do some sequencing, all of that, just the cost of running the trial. And then think about a clinical trial. So I've actually managed a couple of small clinical trials. Just to do a clinical trial with 50 people, it can set you back $100,000.
Yeah,
and
especially
then
with the cost to sequence the
Wow.
bacteria as well.
and then you need somebody to make sure that you cannot identify the people, because you cannot just chat to them like on WhatsApp or like, you cannot identify
How's
them.
your gut hunt?
Exactly. They need to be anonymized, that, the randomization needs to be done by somebody who is not exposed to the results, so he's completely fully blinded. So there's a lot that people don't realize, that, when people say, oh, there's not enough evidence, you need a systematic review. Love, it's going to take like 20 years for us to get a systematic review. And then it's
Fuck
going to
down,
take like
Susan.
Yeah, exactly.
10
Come on, hun, just buy the kombucha.
I know it's going to take 10 clinical trials to show that something has got a mild effect. And we're not talking about, nuclear war weapons here. We're talking about food that has been used for centuries.
I haven't seen my wife's gut, so you don't know. Nuclear wars in the morning.
Hey,
We've all been there when we're pregnant, honey.
But you know what I mean? Sometimes I think if we're looking at life-saving drugs, absolutely do all the clinical trials, all the phases, systematic reviews, meta-analysis. But when we're talking about foods, I get that science has become really sexy and like very mainstream, but sometimes I think we can overdo it. And getting funding for food-based trials is really difficult,
Yeah, it
because
must be
nobody
impossible.
wants to show that something you cannot patent
Yeah.
is going to be good for human health,
Yeah.
sadly.
but also you'd play for a clinical trial and then regs won't let you shout about it anyway.
Well,
So
exactly, and
everyone's
there is
stuck in
that
the
as
middle
well.
going,
Yeah,
you know, everyone's as confused and frustrated as each other.
there's no health claims for probiotics. In fact, using probiotics might not even be legal
No, it's
technically.
not. Yeah, it is in Spain actually, but not in the UK.
Yeah, and there's no health claims for anything botanical. So you couldn't say that the antioxidants in the kombucha are good for you. You could just insinuate it with clever language. So all of this is like a minefield in a way.
Did you research the small trials that you did? What came out of that? Because I know that there's been obviously fermented foods, I think, are sort of getting their hype because of gut health, obviously.
Yeah.
Did your research find any links between the two, or what was the sort of outcome?
Yeah, so I was looking at gut health, but I was working towards my doctoral degree that was in mental health and
You're
the
so
gut.
clever. You are.
I'm pretty.
You do.
But I would love to know that, because I think most people listening to this podcast will either be massive fans of yours and the gut stuff, or they'll just be like people like us that just enjoy trying new things in a booch. But if they don't care about the science, like a lot of people do.
They want simple. I was just talking to Alana that, the simpler the better.
And they want something tasty.
Because you lose,
don't they?
exactly.
And
you
it's going to
lose
be better
people.
for you than that can of juice that you've been having
Oh,
for the last
exactly.
decade or two.
So if they are listening going, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm quite tempted. Where do they start? Because they will only have it and integrate it into their diet if it tastes good, right? So where do they start? Apart from, obviously, Equinox Kombucha.
Yes. But it's like my mum, for example, fermented foods to her, she's like, oh no, like olives.
Oh, no.
Obviously, fermented food, she's like, oh no, tangy, can't have that.
Yeah.
Like everything, she's like, no, not for me, not for me. Like, yeah, what is the sort of starter into fermented foods?
I would say like yogurt is like the easiest, because it's like, it's mainstream. And most yogurt is actually pretty good. It's just a couple of bacteria.
Cultures, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a couple of bacteria in there, and most people tolerate it. There are different textures as well. You have like more kind of like runny yogurt, like Greek yogurt. So I think it's a good starting point. If you like that and you feel confident with that, then maybe kefir is another one as well, because it's kind of a
Bit tangier, but
a bit tangier, but the one in the supermarket is actually very yogurt-like.
Yeah.
Because it's not the one that you make at home.
yeah.
And
Kombucha.
there's not much of a difference because we always have like the total Fayet.
Oh, yes.
Fayet.
Yeah, Fayet.
And we always have either the 5% one, don't we?
That's what we have
Always
in
But-
our
the
house.
fat.
But the 0% one tastes like absolute work.
Yeah.
But is there a huge difference between the fat and zero fat?
In terms of the bacteria, no, because
Okay.
it's the same, because the bacteria won't metabolize the fat. They won't eat the fat.
Right.
They'll eat the sugar, which is the lactose. So then you get a food that allegedly has very, very low lactose anyway. So even if somebody was lactose sensitive, most people could tolerate either yogurt or kefir because the sugar in the milk has been eaten by the microbes. But yeah, I think kombucha could be a good,
Yeah, I think
a
it's
good
good,
start.
especially shot bottle kombucha, like bottles of kombucha. I think because I've tried to make it at home and it's so tangy. Like
It is. It's
just sort of like,
vinegary.
"Ugh."
It's an
But-
acquired taste, the one
yeah.
that you make at home.
Yeah, like
you need to
something
really
like
be
an
into
Equinox
it.
is so mainstream. Like
Yeah.
my mum would have it and she has had it, and I
Yeah.
think that I always benchmark my mother. I mean, she'd probably add some gin to it, but
And also, I think a lot of
You do
people
you.
are interested in a more of a sober lifestyle. Like I used to be a party animal. I haven't had alcohol
Miguel
for like
used to be
nearly
a DJ
4
as well.
Yeah,
We
nearly.
never actually DJ'd together, did we?
No, we should have done.
We should have
Gut
done.
DJ.
Yeah.
Well, we can still
There's a
do
niche.
it.
The Bosch Boys are DJs as well. It's a
Wow.
really
Are
niche.
they?
Yeah,
God.
like food and DJ. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are, gone through party time. They are looking to feel kind of a level-headed more, on a regular basis. And I think kombucha can be really good as well as that drink that you have when you haven't quite gone into just sparkling water every night.
Yeah.
So you're looking for something to replace the wine or
It's
the
your
beer
gateway
or
drug,
whatever.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
And you
booch.
can dilute it as well. I like it with
Yeah.
a bit of sparkling water.
All right. So
Yeah.
extra hydration.
Yeah.
I like that.
I would love to know, sorry, I know going back to really basic terms, but the connection between your gut and your brain, obviously it's your second brain, but for those that don't know anything about how fermented foods can help your gut and then in turn help those neuropathways.
Yeah. So fermented foods actually have got some bits in there that are quite similar to what your gut bacteria are producing in your actual gut. On the basis that if you look at kombucha, it's almost like a gut environment. So you've got less oxygen than in this room, because it's kind of like, it's not completely oxygen free like in the gut, but it's pretty restricted oxygen. You've got liquid in there. You've got something to eat that the microbes like. You have a colony of microbes. So it's almost like a replica of a gut in a way. And because of that, then those microbes will be producing some of the same molecules that are produced in the gut. So there are things called short chain fatty acids that people talk about, butyrate and so on, produced in the gut. What are they? Well, you can think you've got a little microbe in the gut, a bacterium with funny names like Rosaburia or Faecalibacterium or something. You eat something fibrous, so you eat one of the gut stuff bars, and then the Rosaburia will have a chomp of that and will poo out. Basically, that's, in clever terms, the byproducts of metabolism. What does that mean? It's basically the bacterial poo, cute little poo, that is actually good for the body. And it will contain these substances like butyrate and so on. And those travel through, well, butyrate actually helps line the gut skin, so the gut lining. The cells there will need to eat something. And a lot of what they eat is butyrate. So butyrate is really important because it will nourish the gut lining. It will keep it protected so it's not broken. So imagine, it's like skin. You want your skin to be nice and supple. You don't want it to be chopped. And if it was really dry, you'd put like a good moisturizer that's got like a barrier kind of cream to make it more kind of...
Is this to stop like leaky gut? Because
Yeah.
that's the thing, the sort of buzzword that everyone talks
Yeah,
about.
and again,
can
like...
we talk a little bit about leaky gut? What is it? Because we just seem to hear it everywhere.
So leaky gut is actually not a condition as such. It's not like a medical thing that somebody can tell you have been diagnosed with leaky gut. Leaky gut is basically intestinal permeability, which needs to happen because the inside of the gut and the bloodstream are separated by the gut lining, which is very, very thin. It's like a sausage skin. It's
like one cell thin, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's literally like sausages traditionally were made with the intestines, basically. So you can see the skin of a sausage, how thin it is. Well, the gut lining is like that as well. So, and the other side of the gut lining is your capillaries, your blood, basically. And for nutrients to cross from the inside, where your poo is forming, into the blood, they need to go through that skin. And that happens through tiny little pores, basically, and the spaces between cells. So if it was completely plastic, like cling film, and it didn't have any permeability, it wouldn't happen. The nutrients would just stay in the gut and they would just come out in the poo. So you basically increase the permeability whenever you have a meal. Whenever you have a meal, your body is clever enough to know that these channels need to open, so you get the nutrients into the blood, and then the nutrients travel into the brain and the liver and everywhere else. So what happens is that in some people, depending on stress is massive. So stress, again, is like you could have a perfect diet, but then you could be really stressed and, it could spoil it. Depending on poor diet as well. So you had a diet that was super processed and very low in fiber, you might struggle to get like these messages going into the gut saying, open the channel, close the channel, and it may just stay open too long. And that's when, if you test it, if you look at it in a laboratory, you can see that there may be increased permeability. And that's what people talk about, leaky gut. But
we need stuff to get through. It just we don't,
well,
we don't want a lot of
exactly.
it.
And the misleading thing about leaky gut is that you pay hundreds of pounds for a test that will tell you you've got leaky gut or you've got increased permeability. But if you took the test the following day, it might actually give you a different reading. And people create these like fancy protocols around that particular one test that is like a snapshot. Whether ideally, anybody creating some kind of advice around tests, they should look at like a movie. So basically take 3 or 4 tests, and then after that, then you have a better idea as to whether it's always very high And then you can say, okay, well, what things can help with permeability? But fermented foods can help with permeability. Not as in shutting down the permeability, but making the gut more intelligent, so it knows how to regulate the opening and the closing of these channels so the nutrients go in.
What are the common symptoms to look out for if somebody does think they have leaky gut? Do they see it in their stool, or what else is going on in the body?
Not so much in the stool, but you could see it in various different things, like your skin might be poorer quality.
Okay.
You might have things like blotchy skin or like spider veins on your skin, kind of like rosacea. You could have acne, you could have psoriasis, things like that. They are not, it doesn't mean that the leaky gut or the intestinal permeability is the cause, but what we know from the science is that there is a link between the two. It could be mood as well. So that's what I looked at in my doctoral research. So it could be that you have this increased permeability over time, and that means that you have increased chances of experiencing anxiety or depression. Or if you have a different neurotype, like you're autistic or you have ADHD, it could be that that intestinal permeability makes your symptoms worse. So you might feel less social, your social battery runs out more quickly. It could be that your impulsivity is higher, all of those things. Again, the tricky thing is not to think that leaky gut is the target and you fix it and then the symptom goes down, because it's just an association, it's not the cause. So you could allegedly fix the leaky gut, so to speak, and then still have like ADHD symptoms that are off the chart.
Can you just dive into a bit about around, brain health and gut health? Because I think that's obviously your heartland, isn't it? If you could explain us in simple terms how they're connected, as Chessie said, and then just a bit around the science that you've been looking into.
So the brain and the gut are talking to each other all the time. I like to think of like the brain, let's just make this like really simple. Like the brain is male and the gut is female. And like the gut is like chatty and like, rich and expressive and, I have all these things to tell you.
Here,
and the brain is
Margot
going,
Robbie.
yes, no. It's kind of like more binary, more kind of, it's just very precise as to what needs to happen. So the brain is saying to the gut, you need to open because a poo is coming, or you need to, saying to the stomach, you need to produce more stomach acid because you just going to have a meal. I can sense the meal is coming because I'm seeing the food on the stove. So start producing some juices in your pancreas and your saliva so you can start digesting and you get excited about the food. And all of that is the brain sending quite precise messages. And the gut to brain messages are a bit like, creative and, all sorts of sources, because the microbes themselves will be sending messages to the gut, and the gut will be picking those up and sending them to the brain via various systems. So the vagus nerve is one of them, is this kind of a cable, so to speak, that connects the gut and the adrenal glands and all of this kind of like, the bottom part of the gut to the brain. And not just the brain, like right the center of the brain, where you kind of like manage basic things like emotional control and so on. So there's a really interesting link between mood and gut health because of that reason. But then you have your bloodstream and you have hormones that also play a role. So, and you have the immune system, because the gut in a way is part of the immune system as well. Most of the immunity in the body is actually hosted in the gut. Like studies say around 70 to 80% of the whole of the immunity in the body is actually hosted in the gut. So so this chat is going on both downstream and upstream. And whenever you're eating something that changes the gut ecosystem, whether it's fiber, so one of these bars, or you're drinking a kombucha, you're basically making sure that you're influencing those messages that might be going on from the gut up. And that's the interesting link between food and mood, and fermented foods and mood. Are they a panacea that suddenly, if you've had depression for a long time or you live with anxiety, you suddenly, drink kombucha for 2 weeks and it's cured, so to speak? No. Are you likely to make your gut a bit more diverse because you're putting different microbes in there? And that diversity over time is likely to make you have your symptoms, experience your symptoms in a different way. That's what the science is likely saying.
I think that is the danger with the gut-brain axis as well. I think it's been sensationalized.
Yeah,
and we
a
can't
lot.
just say, have a bit of kimchi and it's going to sort you out. Because, mental health is multifactorial and gut health is so multifactorial. It's
Exactly.
not just about what we eat, it's about stress. But I think for me, it's those little nudges in the right direction. It's like simple swaps over a long period of time, like swapping, that juice that we all had years ago, that diet juice. We say juice in Scotland for everything, but diet pop for a kombucha, like that is absolutely nudging it in the wrong way, and it's simple swaps over a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also it's about capacity, the realizing that we don't have the same capacity every day to prepare food, let alone ferment from scratch. And then we kind of like go into self-sabotaging and guilt, so you can put a lot of pressure on yourself by saying, oh, I have the best intentions today, I'm going to start my kombucha from scratch, and I've got a lot of cognitive capacity, I'm going to get the jars. That requires planning, a lot of executive function in the brain, planning, getting your jar, executing the task of like putting the SCOBY in the jar, adding the sugar.
That feels a bit funny.
Yeah, all of that is kind of like a lot of brain activity, and you do that, and then it dies because you haven't taken care of it, and then you
Everyone's
feel
sad.
bad, as opposed to think, okay, what is wrong with actually starting off with shop-bought kombucha and see how it goes before going into this kind of like whole world of fermentation and accepting that as being something positive. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves and we assume that the capacity is going to be really high every day. And some people smash it and they kind of, they go into a program of healthy eating and fermenting and they just basically, they smash it every day. I can smash it one day and then have 10 days that
Oh, that's me.
it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Unsmashable. That's like me. I've got fermentation station on the whiteboard. Everything's looked out, and then 2 days later, I'm like, oh, it's got some mold on the
Exactly.
top of it.
Plants alive, isn't it? You have all these gorgeous intentions, like just house plants, and then they start getting a bit crusty. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I will water it. I will water it.
That's it.
But it's the same. And we actually talk a lot about Aurelia's pet in her tummy, and that she's not just feeding herself; she's feeding her pet. So she has a giraffe because she loves giraffes, and her pet giraffe. We're like, what do they need? We haven't gendered specific it, but what do they need? And Ray goes, well, I want to try some spinach. I'm like, fantastic, we'll get some spinach.
done.
And then the next
Wait,
day,
has she ever said that?
well, you clearly don't offer her it.
I don't blame her, to be
The
fair.
next day she'll go, that don't like that.
Yeah.
So it's really funny with little ones, like trying to obviously keep them as healthy as possible, but not limiting her to anything. And my mum always talks about, she brought us up saying like the more the more diverse the food, so trying different things, the happier your tummy will be. So my dad always uses that by being like, we haven't had a curry in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we? But it's just so interesting with children. Like they have no perception on, obviously we say, this is really good for you. This is going to give you energy and make you stronger for PE and whatever. But she'll just be like, nah, I'm all right.
That is a great tip for parents, though. We did then put into ChatGPT, like, draw us a giraffe in a child's tummy eating broccoli.
So
and
she
carrots.
visualised
Oh my
it.
And then we
God.
showed her and said, look, that's inside your tummy.
And
right
she
now.
loves the idea. She's
Yeah.
like,
There's a
yeah.
book actually, a belly bugs book for kids. Ari loves it because our girls are the same age, and we have like, this is for my belly bugs and this is for my taste buds.
I love that.
So she says to me the other day, savage. She went, Mummy, your gut stuff bars are for my belly bugs, but not my taste buds. I was like, savage. This is the sort of savageness I'm getting
And
from
he
within
said-
my household.
Isn't it Professor Jacka as well, who wrote a book
yes,
called The
that's-
Stew in Your Poo?
Yes, the zoo in the pool,
Yeah.
we've got that as well. There's a few
Yeah.
different ones.
Oh,
A
that's
children's
really
book.
good. But yeah, taste bugs and belly bugs is quite a good one because. But she was like when I first found out about gut health, like what, there's something that lives inside me. She was a bit freaked
Yeah,
out.
it's a
Yeah,
bit
it could go
scary.
one way
Yeah,
or the other.
But it's like all of
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Of like, give me a bath of Dettol. What is this?
Yeah.
But that is like the amazing thing about, I think as well, about kombucha, to be like, well, I'm drinking bacteria. But like, I think we were brought up on, especially our generation in our late 30s, thinking about, or mid to late 30s, all bacteria is bad, right? 80s babies, and especially during COVID, that it was absolutely amplified. So I think this idea of bacteria, people are still getting their heads around. Even when you were explaining it earlier, I was like, wow, that's nuts with all that bacteria that's going on in there that we can't see.
Yeah.
Can I also ask? I'm sure that this moves us swiftly away from fermentation, but pregnancy cravings, like what actually? Where do they come from? Is it like a lack of, say, all I want is just salt, and my goodness, my salt intake is very high, but I'm drinking a lot of water. Like, is that my body going, you need that to do X, you need that to make a brain or a lung? Like, where did the pregnancy? Yeah.
Like, I'll put full disclosure, I'm not a pregnancy
No, of course
expert.
not. Of course, I'm just fascinated.
But there is an element of your body being intuitive about what it needs. So sometimes the salty cravings might be you need some sodium, and your adrenal glands need some sodium to function, and it may be that. And sometimes when you need a bit of sugar for quick energy because you're feeling a bit like of a slump in your sugar levels, you might feel like something sweet as well. So
Wow.
I won't go into anything more specific because I
No,
don't want
no,
to
of course.
My craving was blue and pink cola bottles. Remember them? Fluorescent.
No.
Yeah, definitely not good for the gut bugs, but good
mean-
for the taste buds. I used to get like actual big massive tubs of them.
Really?
Yeah, not good.
Wow.
You know, there's all this sort of nonsense. I'm just going to preface it with nonsense actually on Instagram right now that you should be having this at this time of day and this at this, and you should have, you know, it's so complex. Like if you're having rice, you need to have a pepper before it and blah, blah, blah. With fermented foods, like, is there a good time, food and drink, is there a good time of the day to have it, or is it just like try and get it into your routine and go for gold?
Yeah, anytime.
Okay.
Anytime. Because the thing is that there is such a thing as people obsessing over the evidence, and the evidence has been designed to follow a protocol that was appropriate for that particular study. So you get a study published in the Lancet or, you know, the BMJ or something, and people take it as like gospel because the study happened to use a particular fermented food in the morning. Well, it may have been that there was a feasibility study before where they actually assess how people use the fermented foods, and they may not have published it, but they may have actually interviewed like parents of children. So we did a feasibility study, just as an example. We've done a clinical trial with Kefir and children with ADHD from 8 to 13 that we published in BMC Psychiatry earlier this year. We did interviews with parents going back to 2018-19 to basically figure out, are children keen to have kefir anyway because it's tangy, you know, do they like it or not? That then led to and we didn't publish any of this. It was kind of like, you know, a prequel. Then we did a study that we did publish as a feasibility study. Again, feasibility studies are just to have an idea. Is this worth even doing? We were not trying to test anything. It was just see what happens. It's an observation. And through that, we found out that probably breakfast was the easiest time of the day because then children go to school, it gets busy, you need to send them to school with a little bottle, they might forget. In the evening, they may not fancy having kefir because it's, you know, you have a smoothie with a banana, like 7 in the evening. So I think
Give me some nuggets.
Exactly.
Done
So,
with
you
it.
know, so
Yeah.
we agreed that the protocol that then we reviewed and we published in the BMJ like 2 years later was going to take into account the timings and some sample recipes for parents to make it all accessible and, you know, don't obsess over having the kefir on its own, have it with a banana or make it into a smoothie with a peach or, you know, whatever fruit you have available in the house. And, you know, so there was all of this and some guidelines. And then people might actually read the study and then take it as it needs to be exactly done like this. This is done for ease of use in a particular context. It needs to be watertight because there's going to be people reviewing it, you know. Reviewers get really picky about, you know, the actual protocol and how it works. It doesn't mean that the kefir works better in the morning, particularly for you. Because also, if you're going to be picky about science, we've tested it in that particular population, 8 to 13-year-olds. And we could argue that if you're 20 or if you're 50, the kefir might be better for you in the evening. But we haven't tested that hypothesis. So again, science is all about making an environment very tightly controlled so you don't have all sorts of like bits and pieces confounding your findings. But it doesn't mean that it's not going to work if you have it in the evening. So have it any time of the day, because otherwise you just go mad trying to figure out,
It's going to be behavior, right? Like Lisa and I, obviously identical twins, same genetics, all the rest of it. We couldn't be any different when it comes to behavior. You know what I mean? So I think that is what when we talk about it with the gut stuff as well, it's like, it's not just about listening to your body and in tune because our microbiomes are all extremely different, but it's about how it fits into your lifestyle as well and what's going to keep it up and be consistent.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, it's better to have it in the evening than say, oh, because I cannot manage to have it in the morning, I'm not going to have it. And then this is the self-sabotaging thing that I was talking about. And, have a bit of like self-compassion at the end of the day. If you want to do something good for yourself, can you do it in the evening? Yes. Have you failed to do it every night? Yes, because you forgot, you didn't have the cognitive capacity for it, whatever, you went out and you didn't have it. That's fine. Don't stop having it. Have it as many times as you remember in the week. And then try to also have a few of the bits that are fermented as well, as per your taste and so on.
Can you then, let's say you go all in on fermented foods, you really want to make a difference to your body. What happens if you do go all in and you overdo it? Like, can you eat way too many fermented foods? What's the body's response going to be if you drink 2 gallons of that and then a bucket of kimchi?
Yeah, this is what I was saying initially, that, you could go into this kind of situation where you end up getting too bloated, or your stool consistency is changing because more is not necessarily better for you, and your body's going to have a tolerance to fermented foods that maybe if you have too much, you kind of like tipped it over the edge. So it's almost like veg is good for you, but you wouldn't want to have like
only veg.
2 kilos of broccoli just because broccoli is really good for
just
you.
On that bloating thing, does bloating affect women more than men? Or is that, I don't know, I just used to go through a stage of bloating. Maybe it's just something I've seen on social media with hormones and, does it affect women more than men? Or is it purely dependent on what you're putting in?
I think yes, but it's because of hormones and different cycle, different types of the month. So different types of the month, your body is going to be more sensitive to certain foods, and you're going to react differently. There may be some water retention as well. Women are more likely. Well, apart from that, of course, women are more likely to share how they feel, and we know this from research as well, that men are more reserved as to sharing how they feel. So it may be that they are bloated, but they are embarrassed to share it, whether women are more this is what I was saying, that the gut is more like female, kind of like says loads of things, whereas the brain is more like, I'm just gonna be more guarded and I'm just gonna say the minimum amount of stuff to get by.
Oh, Matt, you are not a typical male, because Matt will literally be like, I'm so bloated and it's the kale and the quinoa. Like, it's not the kale and the quinoa, that's good for you.
Right,
He's in touch with his feminine side, that's fine.
I am honestly addicted to kale. I've got this cracked kale recipe. Have you heard of this cracked kale?
No.
It's basically olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, lemon, garlic granules, not sure how good they are for you, but anyway, salt, and then you massage
Crispy?
the kale. No, you massage it in, so it's like,
wisp it up.
and then
cracked
parmesan
kale.
cheese on the top. It is like
kale.
crack.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I just think I'm
Nothing
not
fermented in
massaging
there,
the kale.
but you got. Oh yeah, you've got to go for a week.
Give it a
It's a bit
week.
like
Such
sauerkraut.
shame, because now Matt goes, no, I'm banned from quinoa and kale, and I'm like, no, because it's incredible for you, but you
overdo it. You go from zero to hero, Matt. That's your issue.
Kombucha's my new crack.
Yes.
That's
Sipping.
Not that I did
Sip,
crack
sip,
before.
sipping. Yeah, exactly. Miguel, you've got a new book out on ADHD. Can you just touch on how gut health affects ADHD and what sort of you've been finding out and writing about over the last couple of years?
Because I've been part of this research team on ADHD and food for a while now. The book is not just about food, but it has a lot about food. It's called ADHD, Body and Mind. And then the title goes on, A Compassionate Guide on How to Rewire Your Nervous System with Neuroscience, Nutrition and Gut-Brain Health. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yes, but what actually is ADHD? Like, excuse my ignorance, because I've seen a lot of it, and it seems to be that it's more and more people are being diagnosed now. But I'm still a bit unsure about what it actually is.
Well, it's labeled as a disorder because it helps with the diagnosis, and it has to be diagnosed by a medical professional who understands it. So, and also because it can be managed with medication, it helps to have that kind of like label that is it falls under psychiatry. But the more we understand the condition, the more we understand that the brain is not ill, is not an illness. It's basically a different type of wiring in the brain, so the brain works differently, and then the whole nervous system works differently, which is what my book is about. It's not just the brain, because we talk about ADHD as being a dopamine deficiency or too much activity, hyperactivity. So basically, you just think of somebody like, twitching their leg all the time, or, you think of like also the bias that a lot of research initially was done on children and particularly boys. So it's like very male, kind of a, small boy with like, twitching or like hyperactive or being difficult in class or whatever. And we now know as well that girls and women experience ADHD in a different way because the hyperactivity is more internalized. So it's more like mental activity.
100 miles an hour.
Exactly, like overlapping thoughts and intrusive thoughts and, anxiety that is not externalized in movement. And this impulsivity as well. So you could just like go on, online and spend $3,000 and think, oh, what have I just done? Yeah, exactly. And like put it all on Klarna and then regret it. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on. And also because we grow from children with ADHD to adults with ADHD. And a lot of the time, like I was diagnosed at 47. I'm like 53 next week. Believe it or not.
I know, I
Stop
cannot.
it.
I know.
And,
You know what I mean? If I look like you when I'm 53, I'm going to be cheesing.
Buzzing.
Yeah, buzzing.
You're also going to
so
be quite
40,
confused.
47.
True.
I basically just I just lived my whole life with undiagnosed ADHD and autism, and like I created all of these strategies to manage my life. Basically, some of them healthier, some of them less healthy, and that happens to a lot of people who get diagnosed later in life. So my book is mostly for those people, maybe if you're in your 20s plus, but not for like children particularly.
What
Just
does that
to-
diagnosis feel like to you at that age? Because for diagnosis, some people it can give them a real sense of this is what has been bothering me for so long. But for some people, it can feel like quite an anchor because then you're then labelled with something.
Yeah.
What did it feel like for you?
Yeah. So I think initially I felt, okay, a lot of it makes sense. There's a lot of grieving as well that goes on. So it's kind of like a mix of elation and grief, because a lot of it makes sense and it gives you kind of the ability to recreate your narrative, kind of like rewrite your life with a different script in a way, knowing what your brain is like and your nervous system is like. But at the same time, there's the grief of the person that maybe you're not anymore. And once you have that official paper saying you have ADHD, you cannot go back to being that person without the ADHD. So I'm not an evangelist as in like everybody needs to go for a diagnosis. I think people go on different journeys, and some people self-identify and, 5 years down the line, they go and have a diagnosis. They may choose not to get diagnosis. They may choose to go on medication or not to go on medication. There are so many different routes. But a lot of what I talk in the book is I talk about the gut-brain axis. I talk about fermented foods as part of, management of potential, again, like gut-brain communication and so on. I try to step away from giving a prescription for ADHD or like this is the ultimate dietary guide for ADHD, because there's none. And everybody, again, we have so many layers as humans that if I just go into the biology of it and I just go into according to this study, you need to have loads of this and loads of that, loads of antioxidants, but I may not have the capacity to think about that particular day, and that's going to make me feel like shit because I feel like a failure. And then because I felt like a failure for so many years in my life, I go back into like a pattern that is like an old pattern that I want to step out of. So I give people the understanding and the tools of why things happen in various parts of the brain and the nervous system and the gut. But a lot of it is very practical, and it puts you in touch with your body. So I ask readers to stop and reflect, maybe do a bit of journaling, or just breathe basically, and ground themselves. So I do a lot of mix of things that I've picked up along the way that cross over from the neuroscience onto more practical stuff that I've picked up by working with a couple of charities. I do some work for a charity on suicide prevention for 18 to 30-year-olds, and they do dialectical behavioral therapy, and they do very cute exercises that are kind of pick up like 5 different things in a room that have like a round shape or something. So if you're having a panic attack, then just looking for 5 round things in the room is going to take you away from these thoughts in your head and ground you in the room. So try to make versions of that are somatic and kind of like bring you back to the body. All the science is there, but it's very practical, and it's also reflecting on the experiences of different people that I talked to while I was writing the book. So they don't appear by name, but they appear as kind of like characters that have different experiences, so people can recognize themselves in somebody who may not be in mainstream science because they may be non-binary or trans or ADHD, 60 and black. So show me the studies that show the experience of that person, because there may not be any. So I've tried to make it inclusive and compassionate.
Amazing. I had no idea about the nervous system as well.
Yeah, the nervous system. I mean, the brain is the nervous system.
Yeah.
Thing is that
it's all connected, isn't it?
Exactly, when we talk about any condition like depression, anxiety, ADHD, immediately you start thinking, oh, what is it? It's serotonin. It's this bit of the brain or that bit of the brain. It becomes quite reductionistic. And the brain is part of the nervous system. You wouldn't have a nervous system without the brain. So it's just putting all those things in context. The gut is the brain. The gut is the second brain. People talk about that as the second brain, but it's part of the nervous system as well. The enteric nervous system is part of the nervous system, and it's all around the gut. And it's got as many, if not probably twice as many glial cells.
What's glial cells?
Part of the immune system in the brain, and they are very important for immune communication. So your body knows how to react with an immune reaction to something. So they're normally in the spine cord as well as in the brain, but you have twice as many glial cells around the gut as you have in the spinal cord. So it tells you about the importance of this nervous system around the gut. That is massive.
With fermented foods and drinks, a lot of them are saying, eat this, drink this, and it'll reduce inflammation. Is that true?
Yes and no. So with a pinch of salt, basically, with a wee pinch of kombucha.
A wee sip of kombucha.
Yeah, that's it. Because the kombucha will have some bits in there that have been shown to be anti-inflammatory. So we know that tea has got anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds. It's going to be part of a healthy, balanced diet. So kombucha on its own, will it reduce inflammation? Potentially, yes, if you tested it. Is it going to reduce inflammation better if you also have broccoli and oranges and bananas and healthy grains and all of those things? Probably much better. And the whole thing about inflammation is that what we know from science is more about a whole dietary pattern and a whole diet approach as opposed to just individual things, because those are the things that people tend to obsess with. And then again, if you don't have them, you feel like a failure.
Or more stress, and then that's going to affect your gut. And Chessie, Matt, have you guys ever tried sourdough, like with a starter, etc.? Legit?
Oh, the legit stuff, yeah, but only my mum's.
Your mum. I definitely want to come to your mum's.
Yeah, please do. Matt's so funny because Matt was like, the other day, it was like, when did bread just become sourdough? Like, you can't just pick up a loaf.
And when did it become £7?
Yeah. And he's like,
Kale's bread.
Yeah, exactly. Sponsored by Kale.
But no, I'm not going to lie and say we are sourdough starter people at all. I would love to be, but I just don't have the capacity, like you said.
It's just so easy though. It's like people have this people have this myth about sourdough that is just so difficult. And I think it's just
Do you have a bread maker or do you just go raw dog it?
Yeah.
No, raw dog it. It's just like it's just the easiest thing. It's literally you just need like
I'm like you, Chessie, though. I'm like, oh no, it sounds like too much of a hassle.
Flour and water and a jar, and basically just put the flour and water in a jar. Give it up, allegedly you need like 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour initially, or 50-50, whatever, same amount. Mix it up, leave it there, and in a few days, leave it room temperature, not too hot, not too cold, not on the windowsill.
Even that just makes me go, no, about...
My brain's gone
just
to
leave it in the kitchen somewhere.
I'm all yours. Honestly,
leave it in the kitchen
Chessie's
somewhere,
nesting.
and then a few days later, not completely closed, so like a little bit of air going in. A few days later, it starts bubbling, and then you can start using it. And then whatever you don't use, you keep in the fridge. And then whatever you use, you mix with the flour. And that's it. You've got your bread. Sourdough bread is literally just flour, a bit of sourdough starter, and a bit of salt. And then you put it in the oven and
How is
it
it
comes
so
out.
good for us then? Like, I don't get it. Where's the bacteria coming from?
Well, the bacteria and the yeast, a lot of yeast in there as well, get killed in the...
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Unless
Like,
you
is a
have the
slice
starter.
of sourdough the
So
same
the
as having a
starter,
kombucha?
I predict that the starter is going to be massive as a thing that people add to smoothies and all sorts of things, because there's a lot of really good stuff in the starter you could add to a smoothie or to a gazpacho soup or something that is not heated.
Really?
Yeah, and it's not unpleasant.
It's just flour and water, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but when you make bread, you fry the bacteria and the yeast, but the dead microbes are what people are now scientists are talking about postbiotics. And kombucha also has postbiotics. Why? Because they are dead microbes that basically have done their thing. They have died. You have loads of dead microbes in that kombucha as well as live ones. And the dead bodies, when they
really
land,
selling this here.
when they land in your gut, or even like little fragments of cells that were live before, and now just like a little bit of a cell membrane or something, they land in the gut, and this little flake of a cell stimulates your immune system in the gut. So it helps with gut-brain communication, it helps with immune regulation. And postbiotics are big business now. A lot of manufacturers are making postbiotics because the benefit that you get is comparable to taking probiotics, but they're easier to store because they don't need to go in a fridge. They can resist oxygen, so you can put them in a powder as opposed to maybe in a blister pack, or so there's a lot of advantages to that. And also, this is gonna sound funny, but bacteria like to eat some dead bacteria as well. So
It's like a zombie apocalypse.
yeah, so when you have these dead microbes coming from whatever, from the bread or dead kombucha, your microbes in your gut will eat some of those and make more butyrate and other fatty acids. So yeah, so that's what the benefit is. Yeah.
So obviously we've had Miguel's font of knowledge. What has been the most interesting thing you found out today that you're going to take away?
I drink a lot of fizzy drinks. I don't want to demonize anything, but I'm always like, kombucha for me is always at the bottom of the list. So I think just getting some insight from this beautiful, intelligent man today has really made
You're gonna
me
give me your number later.
Instead of reaching for the Diet Coke, I just think the benefits of kombucha is so easy, and I'll also be very conscious of just having a look at the ingredients as well. And generally speaking, less is more on the ingredient list. Right? So that's probably my key takeaway.
I think just reminding myself that I can just add it to my diet and not have to, like you say, feel guilty when I've missed it, and just adding little bits into my diet instead of, like you say, just go ham on the kombucha or get loads of kimchi, loads of kefir. And I always have to remind myself that it's there, because we're told to add so many things into our diet to make sure we hit our fibre protocol and our protein intake and all of this, and actually it can become quite overwhelming. But just simplifying it, going no, just have a kombucha when you can, add some kefir. I have yogurt every morning. Like you're doing your best, and I think that's my Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're doing your best and thinking that is enough. It's actually quite satisfying as opposed to thinking, I'm trying to do my best, but I'm not doing quite enough. And then you're always going to get this kind of like feeling of aggy. It's like, you're not quite happy with what you're doing.
And not trying to change too much as well. I think doing one thing at a time, seeing how your body reacts to it.
And that's the beauty of gut health, is about adding stuff in. I think we've all been brought up with health that it's all about restriction and taking stuff away. And actually the beauty of fermentation and gut health is that it's about adding stuff in. I'm still bending my head. I've been in the gut health game for quite a long time now, and I've never thought of it like a sausage before. How mad is that I have never made that correlation? Like just the skin being wild. Miguel, final Jerry Springer style sort of thought of the day. What do you want listeners and viewers to know when it comes to fermentation and gut health? It can be a fact, a tip, or anything you like, really. Words
I think
of wisdom.
just going back to the self-compassionate approach and not having this idea that you must do this because so-and-so is saying this, and then you're missing out because you're not doing it, or it doesn't fit in with your lifestyle, but then you're not doing fiber maxing and now you feel like guilty, or there's so many things that are so many trends that are trying to capture our imagination, and it's great to maybe try to adapt them or ignore them and just stick to one thing that you're doing very well. So I think that, to me, that would be the most important thing. Like I've been in this game for a long time, and if I rewind back, it's like going back like 20 plus years, and since I started doing any nutrition work, and I think I've seen the trends come and go, and the simple common sense trends don't actually go, they stay. So maybe stay with the more common sense things that they feel great in your gut. So listen to that gut feeling, and if you feel that you're overdoing it or trying to overdo it and it's not sitting well with you, maybe that's not for you, and feel okay with that.
Amazing. What an ethos for life. I need Miguel in my pocket. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. That was great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.